So I wanted to watch this Piers Morgan segment. I don't really watch much Piers Morgan anymore, mostly because it's just so much slop, and so many of the guests are just not pleasant to do. Like Rabbi Shmuley, or just these people that just yell and they just yell and they just yell. And today we have Michael Knowles and we have Destiny. So it's going to be an interesting matchup as they discuss whether or not people should still vote for Biden versus Trump, considering the age question. And I think it was like specifically phrased, people will vote for a corpse over Trump. And I mean, depending on your beliefs about how big of a threat Donald Trump really is to essential American institutions like the peaceful transfer of power, yeah, for a lot of people that probably is true. I think I would probably vote for just about anyone over Donald Trump, because I don't think that he respects the peaceful transfer of power. I don't think he respects the Constitution. He called for its suspension because he didn't win the election. He's still completely delusional about losing the last election. He doesn't accept any loss. And in a two-party system, if you can't accept defeat, then you can't really have a two-party electoral system. It's you know, I have already made my position on Donald Trump very clear. I'm sure I will make it clear again during this debate. But I'm sure we're going to get a lot of commentary about Biden and depends. And so it's going to be an interesting conversation. Let's see.
Other than Donald Trump. President Joe Biden has achieved something that for many years seemed impossible. He appears to have unified America, not behind a policy, an ideology, or a dream, but behind the blunt truth that he's no longer fit to serve. A massive 72% of voters now believe he does not have the mental or cognitive health to serve as president. 12 points.
My position is still that I think that he probably can serve as president of the United States, but I don't think he can campaign to be president of the United States. Actually making the decisions and working with your advisors for how many hours of day that you need to make those vital decisions and be at like full attentiveness could probably mostly be done before 8 p.m. That doesn't mean that it's going to be great in every scenario, but when it comes to largely running the country, I think that they've shown that they can definitely do better than Trump, my perspective. So if my option is between Donald Trump or the person who him and his administration, when you vote for someone, you don't just vote for him, you vote for his entire administration, and has managed it as he has. I mean, I think he can manage it, but campaigning? No, I don't think he's a good campaigner. And I think the interview from George Stephanopoulos tomorrow is going to probably continue to reveal that.
Point rise since his debate night disaster.
We'll see, though. Maybe he'll surprise me. Hopefully he will.
The attempts to defend him look increasingly desperate. None more so than this deflection from Nancy Pelosi.
This is an opportunity for Joe Biden to go out there and show he has the stamina and the rest. And by the way, while the press, and for some reason they don't, there are healthcare professionals who think that Trump has dementia, that his connection, his thoughts do not go together. Not only that he just lies, he doesn't even know the truth. So if we're just talking about mental acuity, let's be fair about it.
Yes, let's be fair about it. And to be perfectly fair about it, Nancy Pelosi probably isn't the one who should be adjudicating on mental acuity. And the calls for Biden to stand down are in fact coming mostly now from his own supporters. Thomas Friedman, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and the president's longtime friend, wrote in the New York Times, Joe Biden, a good man and a good president, has no business running for re-election. If he insists on running and loses to Trump, Biden and his family and his staff and party members who enabled him will not be able to show their faces. That's a Biden fan, a Biden friend. And that latter point is a crucial one. Many Americans are now justified.
Biden quickly lost the New York Times people.
Be asking, well, who exactly is running the country? Conservative commentators have long been dismissed as conspiracy theorists for arguing that the Democrats will swap out Biden at the last minute and that people like Jill Biden, the First Lady, are unduly influential.
Oh, wait, I still think Biden's running the country. I think also his admins and administration's running the country. I don't know. I think it's a combination of him and the advisors around him.
But on those points, it turns out they were probably right all along. Well, Dr. Jill's appearance on the cover of the new Vogue magazine is unfortunately timed to say the very least. Makes it look like maybe she's the one who's in charge here. This week,
This is just speculation. I don't know what to say about this. This is just speculation. I'm sure he asks his wife questions and his wife advises him. But President Biden has, been in politics for 60, 65 years. If it isn't him that's doing the majority of the leading, it would be the people that he's handpicked in his administration, like Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken, people like that.
the Biden family gathered at Camp David, where they reportedly encouraged the president to keep fighting. This comes after footage emerged of the First Lady leading a seemingly stricken president off stage after debate, a scene that was grimly reminiscent of a nursing home. President Biden shouldn't be listening to his advice.
Wait, okay. What is this? How do we know she's leading them and they're not just holding hands because they're married? We have no perspective. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's perceived that way, so it is that way in the eyes of the public.
Or his son or his wife. The stakes are far too high. But he should now listen to himself.
If I were to run, I think they're going to judge me on my vitality. Can I still run up the steps of Air Force Two? Am I still in good shape? Do I have all my faculties? Am I energetic? I think it's totally legitimate for people to ask those questions. This is for the voters to decide. Take a look. Look at me, see if I have the energy, see if I know what I'm talking about, and make their judgment. I think it's a legitimate thing to be concerned about anyone's age, including mine. I think it's totally legitimate. But I think the best way to make the judgment is to watch me.
Yeah, well, we did. The world watched, and the judgment was clear. In a 90-minute live debate in front of 100 million people around the world, there was nowhere for Joe Biden to hide anymore. The few Democrats still defending him are guilty of the same blinkered cultism they accuse MAGA Republicans of peddling about Trump. And the only voters who truly want Biden to remain the candidate in November's election are the ones who are voting for Donald Trump. Well, joining me on to debate all this is the host of the Michael Knowles Show and reported fascist. I think that's his jokey description. Michael Knowles, host of the Habituation Room podcast, Francesca Fiorentini, host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless and Outkick Tomi Lahren, and the streamer and commentator Destiny. Right, Destiny, let me start with you.
Wait, can you just... Oh, dude, I got to start putting that. Dylan Burns and reported war criminal. Can we do that? We can do that going on these shows? Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Are you going to stare down the barrel of that camera and construct any convincing argument that Joe Biden should now remain as the Democrat nominee for this election?
I think the difficult reality is...
I'm sorry. There's arguments for Joe Biden staying the nominee. Now, people might say, we have a list of bad options now. But of the bad options, you can conceivably make an argument. If you keep Joe Biden, you get to keep the incumbency bias. And unless Joe Biden was to both resign from being the nominee in 2024 and from being the president of the United States, that incumbency bias would not pass on to somebody like Kamala Harris or someone else. And by the way, that incumbency bias usually entails a lot of other things like, hey, they've won an election before. Kamala Harris lost her election of running for president of the United States and got VP as a consultation prize of joining the Biden coalition. And so Joe Biden has beat Donald Trump. Joe Biden has won an election. Kamala Harris has only done that in her state, locally, not on the national level. She's raised her profile, but she has not been able to do that on the national level. You could say the same thing about Joe Biden when he was VP for Obama, but, just hasn't been tested running for president on the national stage outside of a primary. And there's also the problem of fundraising, where Joe Biden has raised over 230, 40, 50 something million dollars. And if you switch over to anybody but Kamala Harris, and there's a lot of polls polling her still worse than Joe Biden against Donald Trump. There's some polling her better. I know the CNN poll said that. Some are polling her worse. I guess it depends on which pollsters you trust, the quality and the quality of the pollster, the methodology of the pollster. And the only person you could pass over that money to, legally speaking, would be Kamala. Gavin Newsom would have to start from scratch. Or they'd have to find some workaround that I'm not familiar with and I haven't been reading about. There's other things as well, but point is, there is arguments for staying with Joe as the nominee for president. Not to mention the fact that debates are often a snapshot in time. Obama got curb stomped by Romney, then Obama curb stomped Romney when it came to the actual election, and that's what matters. What matters are the elections, not the debates. The debates usually have very small impact. That doesn't mean it's impossible. I'm sure if somebody got on stage during a debate and just yelled racial slurs for an hour, they could find a way to crash their campaign within a presidential debate. Joe Biden might have found that ability. I'm not throwing off that possibility, but in the vast majority of debates historically, they've amounted to very little electorally when it comes to real impact. So there's an argument that you can conceive of, depending upon Joe Biden's performance in the George Stephanopoulos interview and how he campaigns moving forward and changes his schedule, that he might be a better nominee than switching over to somebody else last second who has not been tested nationally and has not had their dirty laundry sifted through. My argument isn't that Joe Biden's the best candidate ever. I did not campaign for Joe Biden in 2022. I went over state lines, over to South Carolina and other places to vote for Bernie, to campaign for Bernie. Not to vote for Bernie, that'd be voter fraud, to go campaign for Bernie. I still want somebody more progressive than Joe Biden. I have a lot of progressive critiques of Joe Biden when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to drug regulation, when it comes to a host of issues. But what I'm talking about right now is strategy, not what I ideologically agree with or don't agree with. So if the question is there an argument you can make? Yes, there is an argument you could make. But that doesn't mean he's the best candidate ever, just that there is an argument you can make.
Incumbent advantage is strong, and at this point, it's too late to replace him. So you're kind of stuck with him at this point.
It's not too late, though. There is a mechanism. They can do it. They can ratify it at the convention. It's not too late. And we're going to come to Tomi in a moment, who's been saying for ages it's more likely to be Gavin Newsom.
Clyburn said that if you were, and by the way, if you were to do it this late, it would be chaotic. You would have to raise the national profile of that person very quickly, especially if it's somebody outside of Kamala Harris. Most people, there's like 40% of the country doesn't know who Gavin Newsom is, doesn't know who Pete Buttigieg is, doesn't know J.B. Pritzker. Certainly, I mean, more likely know Gavin Newsom and Pete Buttigieg and J.B. Pritzker, even though I think he maybe be a decent candidate. You would have to raise the national profile of these people, but Clyburn has said, high-ranking pro-Biden Democrat, somebody who helped him win South Carolina and become president of the United States, he's been clear that if Joe Biden steps down, he would want a mini primary. And we do have some time before mini primary, but honestly, we have weeks to make this decision. We don't have like months to like, It would have to be really mid to late July this month that a decision would be made. And there are some rumors that the Biden campaign is really just waiting for 1 to 2 more weeks to see more polling data come out, see the full impact of the debate, if time, changes the polling whatsoever, etc. See how Biden performs in a few interviews like the George Stephanopoulos this Friday, and then reassess. And then after they've reassessed, they can come to a final conclusion. There was some reporting that Biden was considering dropping out, that the White House then disputed. Biden spokespeople disputed. But in that scenario, it was calculating these different things to determine if they were going to drop out or not. So at least like from Clyburn's perspective, if he was a dropout now, it would be a mini primary. But again, all this would have to happen very, very quickly.
Newsom, I think she was right all along. And actually, I said similar things myself. It's not too late. The question is, are the Democrats, after that absolute horror story of a debate, seriously going to let this guy be the one who allows Trump to get back to the White House? That's the calculation, surely.
I mean, your strongest arguments are Biden's ran against Trump before and won, and Biden's your incumbent. You can say that it's not too late to replace him, that somebody like Gavin Newsom can run for president and he can do just as good as Biden would. But, I mean, people said the same thing, that DeSantis would represent a strong challenge to Trump, and he got absolutely obliterated. It's easy to look at a candidate that hasn't gone through the ringer, that hasn't been tested in a national level election. But who knows if Newsom comes out? There could be 1 or 2 little scandals lurking behind the curtains that now we see.
By the way, there's arguments against Biden as well. Number one, like basically every other candidate could probably campaign more vigorously due to their youth than somebody like Joe Biden, outside of maybe Bernie Sanders, maybe even Bernie Sanders. He was always a different breed. The other candidates would not be coming in with necessarily as high unfavorability, but they're also coming in as relative unknowns. So you're kind of rolling the dice to see how they mesh with the general public. As Destiny just brought up, Ron DeSantis did not mesh well with the general public. He was not very personable. How personable is Kamala Harris going to be? Because right now her unfavorabilities are ranking very high too. As for Gavin Newsom or the other options, like, again, they're relative unknowns. the relative unknowns. The only one I saw that didn't have a net, had a larger net negative than positive was Pete Buttigieg, but that was because most of the country doesn't know who he is.
Gets infinite airtime over the next few months. The reality is that Biden is probably the best shot the Democrats have right now to win.
But do you genuinely believe he should therefore continue and be the nominee?
I think that the Democrats should run the best candidate that they can to defeat Donald Trump. Absolutely,
you keep distancing yourself from this, Destiny. Come on.
Well,
put your head over the parapet. What do you think?
Well, I think that Joe Biden is the best candidate right now, given that he's already beaten Donald Trump in one election. I think that Joe Biden is the best candidate right now to run against Donald Trump.
You think
that beating Donald Trump is really important?
Hang on. Sorry, I don't want to be unfair to you, Destiny, but of all the Democrats in America, how many are there? I mean, tens of millions, right? Of all of them, you think Joe Biden right now, after that debate, is the best candidate the party can produce? Seriously?
I'm sure there are better candidates, but it's not about who the best candidate is. It's about who you know the best candidate is. I'm sure that you could flip a coin and find somebody that might end up performing better. But again, look at how many people have these huge reputations. Look at Cuomo and how he was destroyed after a couple scandals. Like, you have no idea if you take a candidate who looks strong. And I admit.
Yeah, but the problem also is, I do want to throw out there that you're like, hey, look at Cuomo. Yeah, but you wouldn't say through the Cuomo crisis at the end of it, like, okay, let's stick with Cuomo instead of the other unknown, if you know that your ship is sinking. So I guess the response would be for somebody like Piers or like a Democrat that's concerned, maybe like a Cenk Uygur, like, you're on the Cuomo ship right now with Biden. The ship is sinking because of Biden's age issue. And you're not wanting to jump off because of the, it's inky blackness. You don't know what's out there. But if you look down, you know you're sinking, right? That would be the response. Now, again, we still have to wait. I am of the belief that we still need to wait a few weeks to see the full impact of the polling data. It doesn't look good. But a lot of it's still divided. Some of it's like, oh my God, Biden's down 6 points. Other polls say he's down like 2 points. And so I still want to wait a little bit, but still there is a response to that.
Newsom looks strong. He's amazing on stage presentation and everything. But who knows if you throw him up that there are just one or two accusations or one or two scandals or one or two things that the American public doesn't know about that now dominates the news cycle for the next few months. And even though he was a strong candidate on paper, like DeSantis, he disappears.
Okay, Tomi Lahren, you've been waiting patiently, actually for several years, to say what I think you're about to say, which is that, of course, they should get rid of Biden and try and parachute in somebody like Newsom. I mean, do you feel a bit vindicated by what's been going on?
I feel very vindicated, but I'll also say, Piers, I hope that they run Joe Biden. That would be the easiest contest for Donald Trump to beat, would be Joe Biden.
Right.
So as much as I do believe
the one guy he lost to, I mean, I get... You people can say that right now, but at this point in 2016, I think Hillary was like up 6 or 7 or 8 points, which is roughly in the worst polls for Biden right now where Trump is. So like a lot can happen in a very short period of time. Again, I think that Democrats do feel a lot more anxious after the debate than they did before the debate, but I mean, a lot can happen
to select another candidate. I hope that they maintain with Joe Biden. I hope that that's their guy. And if that is the strongest candidate you have in the Democrat Party, that says a lot about the Democrat Party.
That's not what Biden, that's what Destiny said. Destiny said he isn't the strongest candidate. He's the strongest known candidate. That if they were to replace him with somebody like J.B. Pritzker, it's possible that they could do better, but you're flipping a coin. And do you want to flip your coin and take your odds on a race like this? But again, the response would be, if your ship is sinking, then sometimes all you have is a dice roll.
Last week's debate performance was horrifying. It was horrifying as an American to watch because, like it or not, this guy still represents the United States of America. And as an American...
Yeah, Donald Trump lied once every 1 minute and 20 seconds. I just want to throw that out there, that the person that she's advocating to replace him is a serial liar to the point that he lies like he breathes. And like sometimes it's lies that he doesn't. Like, for example, he lied about the death toll in Ukraine for no reason. He said the death toll in Ukraine is so horrific, and you know what? It's actually 2-3 times higher than they say. Where's that even coming from? What does that even mean? Is it like 1.5 million? Because like the numbers I see is like Like, you know, we're talking about like 150,000 here, 300,000 on the Russian side, like some pretty horrific law, but 3 times. I mean, what are we talking about here? He just threw that out there for like dramatic effect, lied about the corpses of hundreds of thousands of people for no reason other than dramatic effect and presentation.
American, although I didn't vote for Joe Biden and I will never vote for Joe Biden, that is still my president. And our enemies and our allies watched that, and it was horrifying. Not only the mumbles and the bumbles and the losing the train of thought.
Somebody just asked in chat, Dylan, are Ukrainian men being rounded up and forced into combat? Some Ukrainian men are getting drafted, and so the way how the draft works in Ukraine, they are trying to digitize it more, but there's this thing, and it's very unpopular, but it's also how the Russians do it, and it's just due to, honestly, it's due to a lot of mismanagement when it comes to the conscription system. They have these guys that kind of walk up and down the street, and they'll like stop you, and you have to have your documents on you. When you present your documents, if you don't have exemptions for military service, say if you aren't the age of 25, if you're not going to university, if you do not have children, there's a bunch of like different factors that are taken in together to determine it. Then you could be told, okay, it's time to serve. You've been drafted. The nation is in a state of fighting for its survival, and your ticket has been called. It's like a lottery system. Some people prefer the lottery system. Other people don't like the lottery system. Nobody really likes the like taking off the sidewalk system. But the main people that I meet that are advocating for like differences in the draft system are not saying, oh, get rid of the draft altogether. They just want it to be more organized and digitized. There are people who are against the draft altogether, but most people just don't like how corrupt it is, how many rich people can pay out of it, and just how inefficient it is, and how, let's just say, archaic a lot of the management is.
Was horrifying. Not only the mumbles and the bumbles and the losing the train of thought. At one point, Joe Biden said that people are getting raped by their in-laws and their sisters. He had one opportunity to dunk on the issue of abortion, where he really could get the eyes and ears of the American public that's very divided on that issue. And he chose to say that people are getting raped by their sisters. So that was a horrible performance. I think they've got to go with somebody else. And what I think is so interesting here is
the point that Joe Biden was trying to make was that sexual abuse comes from every community, and it can be family members, it could be neighbors, it could be teachers, it could be all sorts of people, and that specifically targeting out any one demographic for this, specifically migrants, who on average, undocumented people commit less violent crime than native-born citizens, is not fair, and it paints them in a light that is toxic. That was the point he was trying to make, whether you disagree with it or not. He made it very poorly, though.
Is that of all the names being floated, I'm not hearing Vice President Kamala Harris on the tip of the tongue of any leading Democrat. I'm hearing Gavin Newsom.
Again, when we talk about Gavin Newsom and all these other options, it just feels so unrealistic to me due to the fundraising component and the fact of like skipping over Kamala Harris, considering the constituencies that she represents, or that the Democratic Party at least feels that she represents. Difficult.
I'm hearing Gretchen Whitmer. I'm hearing a couple of other names being floated, but nobody's really saying Vice President Kamala Harris. And that's got to sting.
We have a little clip, which is a mashup. There's a much longer version of about 4 minutes of her repeating the same line. This is a little bit of it. Watch this.
I think we've seen this before, but yeah, she has these like sayings she says, like she's a philosopher queen over and over.
Unburdened by what had been. What can be. Unburdened by what has been. What can be.
But I mean, I have little things like this too. Journalism is the first draft of history, but I just like it. I think it's a cute saying, and I think it has a lot of truth. This is just kind of jarbled. I mean, I get what she's trying to get at, but I don't know. It doesn't feel deep.
Unburdened by what has been. What can be. Unburdened by what has been. What can be. Unburdened by what has been. What we can see, what we believe can be. Unburdened by what has been. What can be.
That one last one was particularly confusing.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
I mean, Tommy, you posted that on X. I mean, this goes on for 4 minutes. It's about all she ever says. And there's an irony, because the one thing she would be is burdened by what has gone on before. Because if there's anyone in America or the Democrat Party more unpopular than Joe Biden, it is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Piers, and that's why they keep jacking up.
Honestly, and the things that get me is like, some of it I think is presentation. Because when I ask people why they don't like Kamala Harris, it's either they don't like her personality, which I think is a really bad reason not to like a politician. I wish our politics were more like, I wish every politician was like Angela Merkel. Boring, dry, and we just have to like listen to them dryly state what they believe. I wish it was like that, but that's not how it works. I think a lot of people just don't know what she did in office or what she has done in office. It hasn't been really high profile. The Democrats have really been really bad at selling themselves. And even if I wouldn't rank Kamala Harris as a politician that I'm particularly like excited about, I don't really know what she's done to earn the particularly high unfavorability ratings that she has.
Joe to get him through each and every single day is because the thought of Kamala Harris.
Outside of maybe cackle, but that's not a reason not to vote for somebody. I mean, I get a beer with somebody. I don't know.
Harris terrifies them even more than Dementia Joe. She also says things about the passage of time and how it passes. I mean, she has no excuse. She doesn't have cognitive decline or dementia to fall back on. She is just that bad. So I think that's why they've been maintaining Joe.
None of this is about like any policy. Or this is all just like presentation and fucking bullshit, by the way. Like, I just can't. I'm just saying, like, when we're talking about like Kamala Harris and like the differences of these people, it's all about how are they presenting, they're fumbling on their words. None of this has to do with policy substance. None of the debate about the Democratic case for the White House is policy substance or deliverables from the last 4 years. It's all just, oh, bad campaigning. Oh man, she says a lot of wacky, like Pokemon go to the polls type shit. I don't care. I do not care. It could be funny, it could be goofy, but this should never really, I think, calculate into whether you vote for somebody or not.
For so long, it's because of Kamala, but boy, they're going to have to face that reality sooner than later.
Yeah, Francesca, look, we've talked about this before, but there must be a painful moment right now for a lot of people who are Democrats, right, where your guy is just clearly has now been exposed as, I would argue, as somebody who's not got a horse in the race, I'm British, I just think has exposed himself as unfit for the highest office in the land. But what do? You know, there are 5 months left of the election. You either allow him to limp on, and I believe if that's the case, get crushed by Trump, or you try and parachute somebody else in, which carries with it, as Destiny was saying, its own risks.
Yeah, no, there's massive risks of replacing Joe Biden. That being said, I do think he should be replaced. And interestingly, Hunter Biden is the one family member that wants Joe Biden to not run again.
Why would anyone listen to him? I mean,
well,
it's
I think it's more I'm just saying
they're
it's
listening
more
to Hunter Biden,
He just wants a single day without the right on his dick, you know?
It's honestly, I just think maybe you need a crack addict to understand what hard times are, okay? That's what all you need somebody to go in there with that experience. I don't know if it's near. All I'm saying is like that's a perspective you don't get often in those circles.
No, because they love to spread photos of it and show it on congressional floors. But look, politically, here's where I stand. I wanted Bernie, not Weekend at Bernie's. I think we all need to just lay that out there. I put this squarely at the feet of the Democratic Party. They ran a piss-poor candidate in 2016. They ran in 2020, and yes, they did win. There was a trifecta. There was a COVID-19 pandemic going on at the time, and Obama made that call, and everybody fell in line. But is Joe Biden the best candidate this time around? Absolutely not. And I think it is depressing and enraging to millions of Americans who the only person they hate more than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris maybe is Donald Trump, right? Is the fact that you have everything going against Donald Trump, not just the fact that he will pass a national abortion ban, the fact that he wants to implement Project 2025 and abolish the Department of Education.
Here's the problem.
Let me finish.
But that isn't true. He's not said he wants to pass a national abortion ban. So, see, when I hear Democrats do that, it reminds me of Trump's the new Hitler. It's like, why exaggerate? Why go too far? He's never said he wants a national abortion ban.
Pay attention to the news that's happening right now. the far-right takeover of the judicial system in this country is already underway. And just to
honestly, I don't think like Trump really wants a national abortion ban. I don't particularly think Trump cares about abortion at all. Considering the type of lifestyle that he's lived, I would not be surprised if he is somebody who has, let's just say, received those services or paid for those services before. That would not be surprising to me. And if most conservatives were honest, it would be not surprising to them either. I do think that Donald Trump is politically savvy enough to understand that the evangelical vote certainly matters, that the religious zealot vote certainly matters, that one of his strongest demographics and most loyal demographics are the extremely religiously devout, that abortion is a big pet issue for them, and therefore, if he can reward them for their loyalty, or he can reward them with appointments to positions of power where they can then legislate their morality, then he will, for that political reward. And if there is a position or a moment where something like that could be implemented, would Donald Trump step out in front of it? I don't know. I don't think he would. I don't think he would step out in front of it, even if he isn't the person leading the charge. Some things can happen without the president of the United States approval. And if there's a national abortion ban legislation that's landed on his desk, he can just abstain to sign it. He can just be like, you know what? I'm just going to let it pass. I'll let Congress decide. And that's the stuff that scares me more about Trump. Trump enabling the people who enabled him, many of them being religious zealots.
Today, they allowed a president to have immunity, total immunity, which means the Jack Smith case
actually, it wasn't
Donald
total
Trump
immunity. See, again,
doesn't go forward.
Francesca, look, with respect, again, you're massively exaggerating. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled
go to Project 2025
well, let me
and tell me
clarify
what it
for
says,
viewers,
Piers.
right? You said they've
like some of the people, like the people who are writing the National Republican Committee's like plans going into 2025, who are writing the outline of their like manifestos, their plans for like governing in a potential Trump presidency. Many of those people do want a national abortion ban. I remember, I could find like an exact name for like people who have openly advocated for national abortion bans who are involved in writing these. 1 second.
Giving him total immunity. They haven't. The Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump is partially immune from prosecution for actions taken while he was in the White House. They said that while the president's immune from criminal prosecution for official acts taken in office, he is not immune for unofficial acts. Big difference to total immunity. So
Sure,
again, why exaggerate?
There is nothing to exaggerate here. What I'm saying is,
you just did about abortion and immunity.
So he's immune from stealing White House secrets after he leaves the office? Is that what you're saying? It's okay for him to keep
classified
classified
documents? You mean like Joe Biden did?
Yeah, Joe Biden, which when he was told, he was like,
What do they mean Joe Biden stole the secrets? That's not, Piers, that's just a lie. That's not how Donald Trump wanted to steal them. Joe Biden had them left over at his house from his time serving. When that information was found, he immediately turned it over to the National Archives. No fuss. No problem, and then engaged in voluntary interviews about that turnover process, which was then laid down as foundations for political attacks against him because he engaged in that completely voluntary transparency, like kind of against the grain what Trump was doing with tax returns, whatever. None of that matters. What does matter is the fact that that's not stealing them. Donald Trump took them, did not declassify them, and then when it was found out that he had them and he was asked to give them over, he hid them, cut the security cam footage on his properties, tried to hide them, and it ended with his home being raided by the FBI because they didn't know if he was going to smuggle the documents out, sell them off, or do something else with them. Yeah, I think that's a little different. I don't think you can compare these two things. You can compare the lack of immediate care to those documents when they were found, but everything past that, like stealing, Trump tried to steal them. Biden didn't try to steal them. The worst you could say is they both mismanaged them, but they did not both steal them.
well, here you go. Look, I'm not here to defend Joe Biden. You're trying to get on me. All I'm saying is Donald Trump represents a far worse threat to the American people. And Joe Biden's a terrible messenger for his own damn campaign. He can't even articulate the fact that unemployment was at its lowest rate last year.
Yeah,
Since the year 1969.
I agree. He couldn't
the economy is actually doing quite well under Joe Biden.
Of course.
But the guy can't put his mouth around the words.
And he had a perfectly good attack line on Trump about abortion if he could remember what it was supposed to be. But he couldn't.
Right.
Michael Knowles, let
Absolutely.
me bring Michael. He'll be waiting very patiently. I mean, look, I think what was extraordinary, 65% of people who watched that debate thought Trump was a winner. Trump hasn't seen approval like that as a politician, right? So that showed you how bad it was. And incredibly, 30% of people who watched it thought that Biden won, which just goes to show how deep partisan tribalism runs, right? Because even Joe Biden knows, even Barack Obama said he had a bad night. What happens here? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I have to correct my friend Francesca here, who says the only person that Americans hate more than Biden is Trump. That isn't true. That's why Biden proposed the debate in the first place, is because his numbers just were not strong enough against Trump, and it completely backfired on him.
I'm sorry, like, this is all cope. Americans don't like Trump and Americans don't like Biden. Americans don't like either of them. The question of who Americans are going to hate less at the end of the day when they go to the voting booth, and a question of who they think, whether they hate them or don't hate them, could do at least a least bad job of it or a better job than the other person. Not a question of, oh, they don't. Actually, they like Trump. No, fuck off. None of the data represents. If you check the unfavorability data for Trump, Trump is in the gutter. Trump is in the gutter. Biden's in the gutter. They're both in the gutter. The only difference is that Biden actually had a positive favorability rating within the last 4 years. Trump hasn't had it within, like, I think the last 8. Like, I'd have to go check. I have to go check the unfavorability ratings. But okay, either way, my main point is, because I can't remember all the data, just they both have very low favorability ratings.
However, I'm with Destiny. I agree that Biden is the best nominee for the Democrats right now. I still don't think he beats Trump, but who else are they going to pick? As we've said, Kamala, no way. Michelle Obama's not going to run, and she's not nearly as popular as people say she is. Gavin Newsom, I don't think that Patrick Bateman plays in Peoria, okay? I don't think Gavin Newsom wins Michigan. I don't think he wins Pennsylvania. Who?
I think, dude, if they could switch out Gavin Newsom and give him Biden's war chest, I think Gavin Newsom. I think it's politically savvy enough, irrespective, putting aside a potential, like, political blow up from some scandal flowing out of the sky.
Mayor Pete? Who are we going to get? Are we going to?
Mayor Pete, actually, there was some internal data that came from the DNC. I think it was done by Open Data, some group like that showed Pete actually performing in a lot of swing states, beating Donald Trump, doing better than Joe Biden. And I think he actually performed better than every other option in the internal Democratic polling. He's also a relative unknown to the American public. And so it would be a question of, as the American public got to know him more, would he be able to keep that currently what seemed like 50-50 approval rating? It was like 34 approved, 34 disapproved. And the rest were people who were like, who?
Going to dig up Al Gore? Is he going to run? There is no better candidate for them right now. The problem is that Joe Biden also can no longer be the nominee because the entire liberal establishment has just admitted he's not fit for the job. The biggest problem right now for Biden is he has admitted it. You know, we heard in 2020 that his obvious slips and gaffes and memory lapses were just the recurrence of a childhood stutter that had disappeared for the first 47 years of his political career. But there it came roaring back in 2019. And now even Biden is admitting, he says, I don't talk as well as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to.
By the way, it could still be that. It could 100% still be that. It's something that re-emerges in his old age, as a bunch of other problems will emerge in your old age. To say that's all it is, I don't think.
But
again, it's hard to tell without the medical info.
Doggone it. The one thing I can do is tell the truth, which rings hollow when even CNN had to go on a 3-minute diatribe, a litany of all the lies that he told during that Thursday debate.
That's not true. They didn't have to do a 3-minute one. I think it was 47 to 50 seconds. Trump, his one was about 4 minutes long. It is interesting to see him mention that, but then leave out the fact that Trump literally lied once every 1 minute and 20 seconds during the debate. He told 30 to 50 major lies.
And not to forget that Joe Biden dropped out of the 1988 presidential race because of dishonesty. So the question now is, if Destiny and I are correct, and he just is the nominee, then how does the New York Times, how does Politico, how does Washington Post, how does the entire liberal establishment campaign for this guy after admitting
Do you know
he's
how
not
bad
fit
it
to be
is?
president.
When you and Destiny basically agree, that's when you know how bad this situation is, right?
Again, look, we are 4 or 5 months out from this. Everybody's really like smiling all shits and giggles on the right. But again, Hillary Clinton was like 6, 7 points ahead. She was smashing Trump at the debates. She was performing very well. Trump was performing pretty bad. I mean, not very well. She's performing okay. Trump was performing bad. The polling data reflect her winning the debates, and then she lost. And while there's a different issue attached to this when it comes to Biden's ability to do the job connected to his age, the idea of like taking the snapshot in time and projecting out in the future, irrespective of how we see Joe Biden perform the rest of this month or how Donald Trump will perform for the rest of the 4 years. Donald Trump's 77. He's got issues too. He's been messing up on the campaign trail, mixing up Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley. Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley, the Baltics and the Balkans. My point is, like, it's a snapshot in time to project this much into the future, these big conclusions about what is and isn't possible in this election. I mean, I heard a lot of similar things from Michael Knowles going into 2020. Just saying about like, this is why Trump's going to win, et cetera, et cetera.
I want to bring in...
I hate people who make like definitive statements about elections, definitely this far out with so much still unknown.
Fox News medical contributor Dr. Mark Siegel quickly. Dr. Mark, great to see you. And the reason I wanted to talk to you was because we've got a clip. This is Biden debating before the 2020 election.
Are we having a
Biden
doctor now review his... Can we get back to the debate? Instead of like just... Can we get back to the debate? I don't want to listen to this doctor guy.
Typical Parkinson's. He's got some expert. Not. Can he be phone calling?
He's pretty deep, right? Is when this is 25th.
Would be a from a president.
Okay.
The idea.
I completely agree. Dr. Mark, always great to have your contribution. Thank you very much indeed. Destiny, you were chuckling there. What were you chuckling about?
The idea that a Republican would demand a full physical assessment from a president when they wouldn't even demand Trump's taxes is hilarious to me. The idea of not being able to answer the call in the middle of the night, I mean, it's already happened. We've had it.
I'm sorry, what was that eye roll from Tommy? Can we look at that again?
The idea of not being able to answer the call in the...
What the... Did she have a fucking stroke? What the fuck was that?
And Trump's taxes is hilarious to me. The idea of not being able to answer...
What is this eye roll? I'm sorry. I'm dying at that one. What is the what? Oh my God. Can people check on her cognitive health?
To the call in the middle of the night. I mean, it's already happened. We've had it with Ukraine. We've had it with Israel. Like Donald Trump did not show leadership when Iran attacked Saudi Arabia and he stood by and did nothing. He didn't show leadership when he abandoned our Kurdish allies in Syria for absolutely no reason. Biden has shown leadership, whether you like it or not, whether you like how he's dealt with it or not. He has shown leadership and the ability to bring allies together for Ukraine. He has shown leadership and the ability to force Israel to simultaneously show restraint while still remaining faithful as an ally. So, I mean, like, we can make fun of a debate performance all you want, but we can compare the legislative records of both presidents and we can compare their actions in office.
You can, but here's the problem. You
Yeah.
can, but here's the problem with that, is that it's just not cutting through.
Destiny's not edgy enough on it. I mean, not like edgy as an offensive, but like he needs to be more aggressive in grabbing his speaking time if he wants to get everything out he wants to get out. He doesn't need to necessarily fight with the host, but he needs to at least be able to finish his point. Like, I didn't even hear the end of his point. I didn't get to see where the end point was.
True. There's no doubt Biden's had a number of wins as president. No doubt at all. There's no doubt that comparative to most of the rest of the world, the US economy is purring along quite nicely. But his approval rating is at 37%. And after that debate, this issue of his own ability to function physically and mentally is now the only thing anyone's going to talk about for the next 5 months. He was incapable when it really mattered.
Saying that right now, confidently, I don't know. I mean, it'll be the only thing that's talked about in reference to his campaign. Honestly, on one hand, that could be doom, or on the other hand, if we know that this is the rock bottom that Joe Biden can hit, and he's only going to perform either mildly better to somewhat better or just as bad moving forward, then at least we know the ground level. But again, not a great position to be in.
Of articulating to the American people what his successes were, what his policy wins had been, what his attack lines against Trump were going to be, and why he should be re-elected. He could, I mean, honestly, I watched the whole thing at 7 in the morning.
I understand that, but
hang on. I watched the whole thing at 7 in the morning in the UK until 8:30. I had a lot of coffee. I was about as alert as a human being could be. I barely understood anything Biden said in the entire 90 minutes. And by contrast, I've known Trump since 2006 very well. I've watched him at close quarters when I did Celebrity Apprentice for 3 hours a night across the boardroom, night after night after night, until, and modesty prevents me from going about this too much, until I won. But at the end of it, I had 100 hours of watching Trump. He's pretty much the same guy. You may hate him, you may hate the trash that comes out of his mouth, all those things. But in terms of his actual performance, Trump on that debate stage the other night, if anything, it was the most restrained I'd ever seen him. Because even he could tell the guy next to him was just melting down. So, Destiny, there's the problem.
Did you figure out what a black job is, Piers, after watching him? Did you guys figure out what a black job is?
I'm going to come to you in a moment for your analysis of what we think a black job is. But let me just get Destiny.
I thought these are, again, Tomi Lahren with the weird eye roll. If there's a lizard person, we have found them. And just Tomi Lahren. These are like the worst zingers to go after like Trump for. Like to flip up like his thing was like black jobs. Just talk about the lies. Talk about the lies. Like him lying about Ukrainian death data, or him lying about any God, I had a list of the lies earlier of him lying about veterans programs, lying about health insurance, lying about all sorts of things.
Yeah. That's what I think the problem is, right? The problem is that.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, okay? As somebody who spent the last 8 years cutting their teeth doing debate, that's what I do, is political debate. All I've heard every single time is debate doesn't matter. It's not that important. Now all of a sudden that's the most important role.
It does when it's that bad.
Why are we talking? What about the immunity for criminal actions that Donald Trump just secured in front of the Supreme Court?
American people.
Idea that,
well, again,
it's insane.
Dog, what is she's like a cartoon character. What are these expressions from Tommy? At least Michael can like stay. They could like compose himself like an adult.
The thing that what we're talking about is Biden's debate performance over the legal requests that Donald Trump is making.
Yes, but Destiny, that's the problem.
That's what we're focused on.
But
this is a problem. I agree.
But Destiny, right there is the problem, is that people are only talking about this. Remember, before the debate, 2/3 of all Democrat voters wanted Biden to stand aside because they were worried he was too old. What do you think they think now? No one's changing their mind on that. If anything, I'd be amazed if it's...
Wait, 2/3? No, that's after the debate. It was 2/3. Before the debate, I mean, I think even after the debate, it was like 55% want him to keep going, 45% want him to step down of Democrats. That was the data I immediately saw after the... So 2/3 wanting him to step down before? I don't remember that. That might be like all of Americans, but Democrats...
It's not 90%. And that's the problem. You've got so many things to attack Trump about, but nobody wants to hear it. When has Trump ever been in a debate where the next day the headlines weren't all about him? It's never happened. But now the only thing that anyone will look for with Biden in the next 5 months is him showing further evidence of mental and physical decline. Let me bring in Tommy. This is going to be the greatest period to be a Donald Trump in a presidential race ever, because he just has to keep allowing his opponent to do stupid things and say dumb stuff and look exhausted and lose his train of thought. That's all he has to...
To be fair, there's a lot of campaigning against Trump, too. Just kind of wait for him to say stupid things, take it and clip it up, and then put it in attack ads.
Right, and I'd also like to make the point, and I know that the liberals on this panel are going to have a collective hemorrhoid when I say it, but even if former President Donald Trump
What the fuck is she talking? She's having strokes live on TV. She cannot talk about anyone else getting triggered.
Standing next to a vegetable last Thursday, he still would have performed excellently, and he did. He got his points across. He was able to finesse some of the issues like abortion.
Look at all the hemorrhoids that you see from them. Do you see Destiny having a stroke? Do you see her having a stroke?
In a way that I've always been concerned about, but I think he did a great job. So I also want to point that out. But as I've said, I don't think they're going to keep...
Hey guys, I'm going to shock all of you, and I'm going to put... oh, everybody prepare for this. I like Trump. Like, what of course they knew you were going to say that. Well, Tommy, that's who you are.
Joe Biden. I know that all the Democrats say, well, they have to because of this and that. Logistically, they have to keep with him. You can't keep along with somebody who in the next several months is going to go downhill even more steeply. This is not going to be a linear decline. It is going to accelerate. Anybody who's watched an elderly person decline this way knows it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And I think there needs to be more of a discussion about just how evil First Lady Jill Biden is, that she is standing by as her husband is going through this. This is truly evil. Why she's not pulling him aside and saying enough's enough just shows that she is so hungry for power, she's willing to embarrass and let her husband embarrass himself that way. Shame.
What the fucking weird dream is this? Is it not that the president's probably like, I still want to run for president, and she's like, I'll support you. I will always be in your corner, Joe. It's probably something along those lines, not, Joe, I must suck out all of the life energy for my continued existence. I must manipulate the markets, Joe. Like, Jill Biden is the puppet behind the scenes. It's just like a negative image you can portray of Joe Biden, is the idea that his woman is controlling him. There used to be a similar thing about Obama and Michelle Obama, even though there was no question about his like mental capacity whatsoever. I don't know. I think it's just like an idea of like liberals being controlled by their wives or something. I don't know.
Shame on her.
Yeah, Francesca, I got to say, I agree with that. I think I've
What? Okay.
interviewed Dr. Biden about 10 years ago now, and I've watched him the last couple of days, and I'm seeing somebody who seems even more desperate not to give this up than Joe Biden is. And surely any...
It's probably that she is his wife and cheerleader, so she's cheerleading. You can call it desperate, you can call it whatever you want, but the idea that she is the one pushing him to, like, I'm sure that she is probably backing him up, but the idea that she's the main deciding factor, you could maybe say that she isn't actively telling him to drop out. And if you think that's wrong, then that's wrong. But the idea that she's evil, she's the real power hungry person behind the scenes, and this is so she could, this is just all like wild speculation.
spouse in that position, forget politics for a moment, who sees their other half humiliated on a global stage like that in the way that it went down, surely the humane thing to do is to persuade that person it's over, isn't it?
Sure, but also Nancy Reagan apparently was running the show for the last few years of that administration, so you never know. Tommy might be right on this. Look, here's the thing. I'm just jealous of Republicans. Like, you guys are just so loyal, you know? I mean, MAGA is a cult of peaked-in high school conspiracy theorists who want tax breaks and a mass deportation of migrants, and they won't abandon Trump no matter what, and you just gotta admire that kind of loyalty.
Hang on. Do you know who the biggest deporter of migrants was in US presidential history?
Yeah, it was the guy who's not running for president.
Did you know who it was?
It was Barack Obama.
Yes, it was. A Democrat.
Yeah.
3 million.
And I hate the Democratic policy.
3 million migrants, he said.
What is this smile from Michael Knowles? She had the answer. It was like a clip to catch her, and then she knew the answer. And does that still count as a catch? If someone was like, Dylan, do you know who tried to assassinate Fidel Castro like 100 times? Was it the CIA? Yeah. Is that if I knew what it was, you didn't catch? It was a catch. You're trying to get her. Had the answer. Is it just supposed to be like a hypocrisy thing? I get maybe. I don't know.
He was the deporter in chief. Donald Trump, by comparison to Obama, wasn't even at the races when it came to deportations.
I just wish Democrats had Republican conviction. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we have a wet noodle as a candidate, and Republicans are like, yeah, he sexually abused E. Jean Carroll and he tried to overturn an election that he rightfully lost, and he's got 2 impeachments. Well, we love this guy. Let's effing go. And I just wish we had that kind of commitment.
Did you love? Did you like Bill Clinton as a president?
No, not really. I did not believe in deregulation and like the 94 NAFTA bill.
What did you think of the fact he paid Paula Jones $850,000 to make a sexual harassment case go away? Or what did you think of him having sex with a young? What did you think of having sex with a young intern?
I don't know why you're
in the Oval Office?
Piers. Again, look, we all know you want Celebrity Apprentice. We all know that Trump calls you But like, how
Actually,
much?
I've had quite a frosty time with Trump in the last year and a half. So I wouldn't overstate our
But he
current
still calls
relationship.
you. But you always talk about how he calls you. You're like, I'm a liberal. But
No, but hey, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. Never have been. I ran a left-wing newspaper in Britain for 10 years, right? I would call myself a centrist, actually. I'm a
very enlightened
journalist who likes to go after both sides, hold both sides to account. But right now, the problem that the Democrats have is...
Dog, she was just saying that Jill Biden is puppeteering fucking Joe Biden. You're like, sure, okay, that's fine. That makes sense.
No one cares about...
I don't think I've seen like a single critique from like directed towards Donald Trump from Piers Morgan this entire segment.
Trump. And this is...
And like, again, he lied once every minute and 20 seconds. Him lying is of no consequence.
91 criminal charges against him, right? But no one's talking about it. They're all talking about whether the guy currently in the White House...
There you go. That's close to a critique.
...can even know what day it is. That's the problem.
A lot of people would vote for a corpse over Donald Trump. That
they may have
actually
to.
says more
They may
about
have
Donald
to.
Trump than it does about Joe Biden. Let's go.
All right. Michael Knowles.
I like how that smile turned into a frown when he finished hearing what her point was.
People will vote for a corpse over Donald Trump.
They will, and please let them do it. Let the partisan Democrats do it. I'm now all in on the Democratic rhetoric. The Democratic primary voters have made their decision. They want Joe Biden as their nominee. It would be an assault on the integrity of this country and on our sacred democracy if they replace him now. I can't wait to see him in all 50 states. You know, at this point, obviously, the man is not up to the job. So someone else is running the country, whether that's Jill, whether it's Ron Klain, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's Barack Obama.
You know what's really interesting, Michael?
You know,
What is this like wild? Maybe it's Barack. You're just throwing names randomly out there. You know who it would probably be who's helping Joe Biden run the country? The administrators in the positions. Like, hey, who's running national security? Maybe it's the national security advisor. Hey, who's managing, you know, foreign policy? Maybe it's the Secretary of State. Like, it's not hard to figure. Like, if Joe Biden literally was brain dead, it would not be hard to figure out who's managing who. And there's no reports I'm reading that Jill Biden is the one like controlling Ukraine policy.
This is really interesting to me, this panel, because if we'd gone back, you know, 3 months, you'd have all been shouting at each other, arguing about Trump. The two siding to the Democrat side here on the panel, you've been neutered by what's happened. I can feel that the luster has gone. The enthusiasm to beat up conservatives has just flown out of your bodies. I mean, there's not been one argument. You've all just sat there going, we agree.
Well, a lot of it was Piers Morgan interrupting them when he was trying to, when Destiny was trying to make his point about why you should still vote for Joe, you interrupted him. But Piers has always been terrible about interrupting people and not giving them proper time to speak. Sometimes he'll knock it out of the park. Other time he'll just jump down their throat before they get anything out.
He sucks. Your own guy sucks. He's barely alive. You've lost your fight, haven't you? Biden has removed the fight from Democrats. That's what I'm seeing here.
Not.
Absolutely. Actually, I agree with that.
You agree?
I totally disagree. No, if Donald Trump is taking insane, again, the Supreme Court ruling today is unbelievable. The idea that instead on today's show, we're going to focus on whether or not Biden had a bad debate performance is just reflective of the, I don't want to say agenda in a negative way, but of what you want to talk about today on this program. Like, I think that the decisions that are being made right now legislatively in the Supreme Court are more important, or that are being made in the Supreme Court are more important.
You know why that's happening?
Than whether or not Biden has a bad.
You know why it's happening?
Oh my God, shut the fuck up. Somebody throw something at Piers Morgan. Just shut him up. Let him, like, he's like, oh, why you guys are talking? Well, you know, you're not fiercely defending your thing. What is your, okay, I'm going to defend the thing. This is what oh, well, wait a second. Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Trump was able to put 3 judges on the court in 1 term. You know why that was? Because you put up a terrible candidate, Hillary Clinton. It was incredibly polarizing.
No, the reason he was able to put up 3 candidates is because the Republican Party held up that wasn't Neil Gorsuch. It was Merrick Garland, a very centristy nominee for the Supreme Court, when they wouldn't even look at him. They wouldn't even let him be considered as an option because they just wanted to hope that a Republican would win and then he'd get as many appointees as they could. Like, and that's what they did. That's why you got 3 appointees. It would have gotten 2 appointees if they appointed Merrick Garland like they should have.
Very arrogant, very superior, and she got flatlined by Trump when no one saw it coming on the Democrat side. And secondly, some of your Democrat judges who should have known better decided they weren't going to resign, they weren't going to retire, and because of that, Trump was able to pack that court. So I'm afraid you reap what you sow. Just very bad politics by the Democrats.
One of those Supreme Court justices were literally lost by McConnell just robbing a president of the right to seat a judge. Nobody remembers that Garland was supposed to be on the Supreme Court for almost a full year. McConnell said, we're not going to have that hearing. That is indefensible.
Let me bring in Michael here.
Oh my God.
Oh my, dude, honestly, if this is how it's going to go every time, I don't even know why Destiny should come on this fucking show. Like, honestly, like, if it's gonna be like every time Destiny like just starts talking, it's gonna be immediately, let's throw it over to another guy before, or let's interrupt you before you can get any of your point out. I don't think Destiny's got to finish a thought actually in the last 20 minutes.
Have to leave in a moment. So Michael, come to you, then come back to Tommy for a final wrap from her. But Michael.
Destiny, the principle that you're articulating, that a president should be able to put a judge on the court in an election year, or rather that you say Mitch McConnell violated, was a rule first articulated by Joe Biden in the 90s when he was trying to kill George Bush's judges. So obviously there was a decision today. It said that the president has some immunity for criminal acts or acts committed in his official capacity as president. And this is based on a 40-year precedent. It really goes all the way back to the Marshall Court. Really nothing should be surprising about this. And yes, the Democrats are upset. They're not true.
This is based on.
Wait, didn't Donald Trump replace what's her name? Didn't Donald Trump replace the Supreme Court nominee in an election year? Didn't he appoint Amy Coney Barrett during the election year? Yeah, RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So even if what he's saying is true, didn't Donald Trump violate that same principle? So the Democrats can't appoint in election years, but Trump can.
Finish 1 second, Destiny. They're inveighing because they say we should be talking about the immunity case. Well, part of the articulation of, I just was reading the decision, was that, look, this is the first time that you've got a president who's being prosecuted in this way. And that's the problem, because the vast majority of Americans, right, left, and center, have been saying in survey after survey that they view the prosecutions of Trump as primarily politically motivated. They view this as kind of corrupt. And that's one of the reasons why Biden's poll numbers have been so bad for so long. And so they throw this.
Let me be clear. I don't think any of Biden's poll numbers has to do with Donald Trump having court cases against him for all the crimes he's committed. I think that's a bunch of horse hockey bullshit. And it's like completely agenda driven. I don't even think he truly believes it.
Hail Mary to do a debate in June before either party has settled on a nominee, and it completely blew up in their face. And so no wonder people want to talk about it. You've got a political order that is fraying.
I will say it is wild that they asked for the debate. They were the ones who requested the debate with CNN. They asked for it, and this was the result we got.
You got a guy trying to put his opponent into an orange jumpsuit, and it turns out the guy who's trying to do that has applesauce for brains. No wonder people are concerned.
You know what? The American people, a bit like the British, I think would be the same in this position. They can smell a political hit job. And the fact that the first case that was used against Trump to try and convict him and put him in prison involved a payoff to a porn star 20 years ago for a supposed one-night stand, or whether it happened or not, that just smelt to them like a massive overreach. Whether he did it or not, they didn't care. And so the idea that the first American president in history to ever be convicted of a crime in a criminal court is convicted over something so pathetic and trivial. The American people, the right-minded, reasonable people who are not in the kind of mad tribal ends of their parties, all went, well, that's ridiculous. And actually demeaning to the country. Tommy, I know you got to go. So final thoughts from you.
Let me be clear. If I lied on financial documents and lied about paying off a prostitute that I hired while cheating on my wife while she was pregnant with my son, and violated the law to do that, I do not think that the government would say, Dylan, you were just being cool, dog. You were just, you just needed to, empty your load a little bit. That's fine. It's whatever. And then I'd get off with it. Why should the president get off, but I shouldn't get off?
before we let you go, and then we'll carry on with the with Francesca as the rose between two thorns afterwards.
me.
But Tomi, your summary of where we are with this. What do you think is going to happen?
Yes.
Give me a roadmap to the election day.
Listen, I think they got to replace Joe. I don't know if it happens at the convention. I don't know if it happens after the convention, if they use that mechanism and the DNC has to get together and pull some strings. I would remind folks that don't think it can be done. Let's remember that the Democrats were able to overhaul our election system due to COVID in 2020 in a matter of months and nationalize mass mail-in voting. So I never underestimate a Democrat, though I will say in sitting with this panel today, it's easy to see how sad the Democrats are, the liberals are. It's easy to watch them crumble because their candidate quite literally is crumbling before our very eyes.
She was fucking seizing out on stream earlier anytime she heard anything that disagreed with her. She's a cartoon character made for TV. She's completely sold her soul to the cable networks. Nothing just but plastic smiles and twitching eyes from her.
It's a great day to be a Republican. It's not a great day to be a liberal, but I hope you guys stick with Joe, and best of luck to you.
Tomi Lahren, always great to have you on Uncensored. Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate it. Destin, I could see you thoroughly agreeing with everything Tomi was saying there.
It's just Francesca, I think is the name. I agree with her. The thing that Democrats suck on, that we're missing, is this blind allegiance to a leader, literally no matter what he does. It is the engine that powers Republicans. It allows them to lie for their leader. It allows them to excuse horrendous actions by their leader. It allows them to look at a president and after decades of saying, oh, we need to limit the power of government. Oh, we need to limit the power, say, well, maybe the president should actually be above most criminal prosecution. Also, as a quick thing, you keep saying that, no, it's just partial immunity for official acts. What is an official act of the president? If you actually listen to the oral arguments that were presented before the Supreme Court, what that act even is and the ability to even probe for it is stuff now that is now presumed to be immune. For instance, just a real quick thing. When Donald Trump is asking Pence, hey, can you throw out the election because I don't like the results, which is a real thing that happened, by the way. As much as Trump would like to say that's not true, that is counted as an official action because these are the roles of the president and vice president, deciding how to count the electoral votes. That is insanity to me. If Biden were to do anything even remotely similar, Republicans would lose their minds.
Have you read the decision? I know it just came out this morning, but have you gone through the decision yet?
I read up to page 25, and in part of it, I can read it out to you. He explicitly calls out that whenever the president and vice president discuss their official responsibilities, they engage in official conduct, meaning that presiding over the January 6th certification proceeding, at which members count, yes, so that did count as official conduct. So if you thought that he was trying to do a coup, try to steal the election by saying, hey, do you think you can throw those votes out? Well, that's beyond prosecution.
You can dispute or object to any actions that Trump takes, but it is simply the case that when a president is carrying out
Can I just say, I'll listen to Michael Knowles. I disagree with him on everything. It's just easier to listen to him talk than it is Tomi Lahren. When Tomi Lahren leaves the room, a conversation becomes like 5 times more pleasant.
And is speaking to his subordinates in the White House, that is obviously official business. If he were to bring in a bunch of, I don't know, drug dealers and hookers or something, that would probably be an unofficial crime, not related to his duties as president. And the reason that this matters and why it's really a moderate decision is because it goes back about 40 years to Nixon versus Fitzgerald, which found out that the president, yes, indeed, has quite a lot of immunity from at least from civil liability. And then the reason that this is such a novel bombshell case is because until Joe Biden tried to throw his rival into the clink, we didn't prosecute presidents because that's the kind of behavior typical of banana republics and tin pot dictatorships. But the argument...
Joe Biden did not try to throw him in the clink. Donald Trump committed crimes in the New York legal system, as well as a bunch of different legals snatched him up for trying to commit crimes, including not only trying to illegally overturn the U.S. election results, also trying to pay off the porn star and then lying about it on financial documents. And it's lying about it on financial documents that really screwed him, not less than him paying off the porn. I mean, he got in his own legal trouble. It wasn't Joe Biden that led him to do those crimes.
And I'm sure you've read this, even if you've just read the first 25 pages, goes all the way back to the Marshall Court. It goes all the way back to the finding that the presidency does have certain privileges. It's not totally beholden to the other two branches of government. It's got an executive privilege. We have a separation of powers here. It goes back to the Federalist Papers when the framers of the Constitution said that they need a vigorous presidency because...
Listen to all the stuff that Michael Knowles can get out without interruption from Piers Morgan. I'm just saying. Like, he can rant about this stuff that... Like,
is a curd.
Donation?
Moongazer 423 has donated $5.
Hey.
Remember, liberals, when the far left and far right push us to extremes, we must be the light at the end of the tunnel once more.
Oh my
Keep
God.
doing Allah's work in Ukraine, Dylan.
The liberal light at the end of the tunnel. We have truly gone full Marvel Avenger Reddit, okay? I'm very proud of us, okay? We are truly Reddit gold.
The problem with the first American...
Thank you for the $5, man. I do appreciate it.
Republic, which was the Articles of Confederation, was that you didn't have any strong executive power. So this is not something new. This is a perfectly in keeping with the American legal tradition. And now the Democrats are really upset about it, not because it's an upending of American jurisprudence, but because they're going to actually have to run on their guy. They're not going to be able to cheat and throw the guy in jail or take him out of banish him to St. Helena. They're going to have a fair and square election, and they know they're going to lose it.
Yeah,
Can I just ask a quick question? I just want to hear just a quick question.
Yeah.
So you're saying that
there's like no pushback from Piers Morgan. It can't be. Well, I mean, he did try to hide those documents from the National Archives, and then he cut out the cameras. And I mean, there is audio of him showing classified documents to reporters that had no business of seeing these invasion plans, war plans. I mean, of the most, when you think of classified documents, they say war plans, plans for war are pretty up there.
The president were to order the assassination of a presidential opponent in an election, you're telling me that if he thinks it's for national security reasons, you defend that as being above any kind of review for criminal prosecution. You would say, well, that was an official act as president, right? And answer that question. I really want to answer that question.
Obviously,
I'm happy to answer you if you don't interrupt. You're bringing up one of the important questions that was raised during the oral arguments, and it's an argument against the case that Trump's team was making, but it doesn't really pertain to the actual judgment that came down, because they didn't say that the president gets to do whatever he wants. He doesn't get to go and assassinate his rivals. He doesn't get to do this, that, or the other thing. But he does have
Sotomayor
a very
had that in her
robust
dissent.
scope.
She said he could do that, and it'd be beyond review. She put that in her dissent. I did read her dissenting opinion. So how would it be not part of the official job as president? They order drone strikes, don't they? They order the military, don't they? He's the commander in chief, isn't he? Why wouldn't he be able to order the strike and say, you can impeach me if you want, but you can't hold me criminally liable. This is my official act as president.
Sure. Well, I mean, even the aspect of impeachment is kind of secondary to that, because the Trump team was arguing that if you want to go after a president,
wouldn't the argument have to be about whether it could impede the president from doing his official acts? So therefore, while there would be presumptive innocence, prosecution would have to make the argument that it did not impede his official acts, which, I mean, like assassinating a president, it wasn't necessarily impede official act. I think it'd be easy to make the argument that it didn't. It'd be difficult to make the argument that it did. But I'm not a legal scholar. I was reading other legal scholars, though. And I was trying my best to absorb all of the legal knowledge.
At all. You've got to do it through impeachment. And the court said, no, you can actually prosecute former presidents for crimes that they committed in office. So the fever dream that you and other Democrats are creating of what this decision implies is not actually what the court said. The court gave a very moderate opinion that said that certain aspects that are conclusive and preclusive within the scope of the executive branch, he has full immunity, and he's got partial immunity around the peripheries, and then he could be criminally liable outside of that. And if you're asking why, President Trump standing on Fifth Avenue and shooting his rival in the face, how we could possibly prosecute him for that, I think you just don't have any faith in the American legal tradition. And I think you're making an absurd argument to try to justify something that actually does upend over 200 years of America.
Like asking the electoral vote to be thrown out?
Let me bring Francesca in. She's been waiting patiently here as the two guys have been duking it out.
I wanted to leave earlier, but no, I just think I think it's funny, though, that Michael brings up the Fifth Avenue shooting someone in the face, because the quote is that people would still vote for me. I mean, and this is kind of the sickness of the far right in this country, again, is that Trump does fancy himself above the law. And this incredible dishonest conversation about this immunity ruling is just wild to me. Like, the whole reason that the Supreme Court picked it up is because You've got 3 Trump-appointed justices who are all bought and sold by billionaires in this country, who have all been handpicked by the likes of Leonard Leo and Judicial Watch, right? And these far-right billionaires that know exactly.
I was looking and I couldn't find that conservative earlier, but I know I think his name was Ed. I forget his last name though. I'll see if I can find it still, but I'm looking through all my files and I can't find it anywhere. I'll keep looking.
What they're doing. The Federalist Society knows exactly who they've been grooming to be appointed to the highest bench in the land. And here they're delivering on it. They didn't have to take up this case, but it was actually Trump's lawyer's defense against why he shouldn't be prosecuted over both documents cases as well as January 6th inciting a riot. It's just incredible to me. You guys all think that, oh, Biden's a criminal mastermind. He's trying to lock up his opponents. Piers, Michael, he did it to himself. I'm sorry. He did. He didn't have to pay off the porn.
Ed Martin. That was his name. His name was Ed Martin. He was helping to build the Republican Party's platform for the convention. And he was openly advocating for the jailing of women who get abortions and was advocating for a national ban without exceptions for rape or incest, including when done to children. And he even brought up the case of that little girl that had to travel across state line to get treatment, and said that it should not be an exception for her either.
Started by cooking his books, by falsifying business records. Thank you. You're welcome.
You know what happened?
Right? Like he just did it to himself.
Francesca, the problem is, from the moment he got convicted of that crime, what happened? He raised $150 million in one week.
From billionaires, but not from everyday people, ordinary people.
He got grassroots donations as well. I don't know if the lion's share was grassroots donations. But none of this is arguing about whether he was actually guilty of the crime. Now we're just arguing whether or not he was popular, why he committed the crime.
Aren't giving to Donald
I've
Trump.
not met any, honestly, I've not met any American since that conviction who doesn't just feel a bit embarrassed. A bit embarrassed it ever happened. It was embarrassing for America.
I'd also like to correct the record, if you don't mind, Piers, because Francesca said that I accused Joe Biden of being a mastermind. I have never once in my life accused Joe Biden of being a mastermind or even possessing one.
Do you know what? There's a clip on, I've said this before, but there's a clip on YouTube of him talking to a Senate congressional hearing about apartheid South Africa. He must be in his early 40s, Biden. He is fantastic. He's passionate, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's eloquent, he's brilliant. That guy would be a fantastic president. That guy has long ago left the building. And it's actually, on a human level, it's very sad. But at the same time, he is the president of the United States and he wants to run another 4 years. I mean, Destiny, you know, with all the best will in the world, he'll be lucky to make it to election day. Never mind 4 more years. Can you imagine what Biden will be like in 4 years?
Listen, if they wheel that dude out and he's got an IV drip in him, I'm still voting for him over Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I'd rather Kamala Harris as much as I don't. Yeah, absolutely. What do you mean? It's the idea of not accomplishing anything versus heading off in whatever direction Donald Trump wants to take us. Yeah.
If they literally wheel him out, you would still vote for him.
Kamala Harris, Jill could walk out on stage with an urn saying, "This is the president." Okay, Joe Biden. Okay. Here he is, and I say, man, this is really annoying.
He did.
Destiny, you can't be serious.
Joe Biden said he wanted to be FDR, so, you know, die in office, I guess.
Destiny, you would vote for Joe Biden's urn with his ashes inside rather than Donald Trump.
I would too. Unabashedly.
Absolutely. Easiest decision in my life. 100%.
Poor Kamala.
Francesca, would you do that?
Kamala's just like, are you kidding me?
Francesca, would you do that?
Would I vote for an urn?
Yes.
No. The Democratic Party is doing their own base a massive disservice by keeping Joe Biden in this race. They absolutely are. They're not even creating a new lineup, a new roster of Democrats to come into the wake. They can't even rely on their own vice president. They haven't given her enough leash to actually say anything other than her one catchphrase that like makes my mind just boggled. It's really pathetic. And it's pathetic because actually the administration has done some good things. Infrastructure plan, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the things that Donald Trump keeps on squirting.
You know what's funny is every time they start talking about like policy achievements of Joe Biden, they're like, wait, this is getting too specific. Can we get it back to the vague vibes?
Don't disagree. I think there's on legislature, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. He just can't talk about it because he's not able to articulate what he's done. Let me ask you about
Did you see the handshake, though? The 3-point handshake?
Yeah.
That three-point handshake was tight.
Francesca, if you had the power to parachute anybody in from the Democrat side to replace Biden, who would it be?
It's difficult. It's difficult to say. You got to think
Can we
of someone.
pay money to get down on these panels? Money isn't going to get me on panels. And I don't think, in my experience, it's about making enough splash on social media and being bombastic enough to be able to get on these panels. And, I mean, maybe I should be more bombastic about Ukraine, but like the issues that I'd want to go on these shows to talk about, I don't know if they'd want to, I don't know if the people that I'd want to talk to would agree to. I think going on to TV, they'd agree to it no matter what, whether I was there or not. I'd go on if they asked me. I just don't think I can finagle my way on there.
Someone who's got name recognition and who could also win.
Give me a name.
Oh, my cat. Her name is Ramona. No, you know, I gotta say, I think I'm going with
J.B. Pritzker, Sherrod Brown. Honestly, I think Gavin Newsom could win. Who else could win? I mean, I could just start like naming people that I like. Gretchen Whitmer, I think, could probably win. Pete Buttigieg, I am more of an unknown. I mean, a lot of these people I'm saying are unknown. J.B. Pritzkers are unknowns. But like, if you're asking, do I think? I mean, if I was to flip a coin, I would guess towards yes, but I've never seen how they perform on the national stage before.
with Newsom because of name recognition, the ability to sort of go after someone like Ron DeSantis. But you know what? If we can switch octogenarians, let's go Bernie. Bernie one more time without the Democratic Party tanking his campaign.
Listen, you know what? He would do an immeasurably better job of taking on Trump. As I think Newsom would. I watched Newsom on Sean Hannity for an hour on Fox News. A, I commended him for going into the lion's den, and B, he acquitted himself extremely well. I wouldn't underestimate Newsom.
He did go well. He did do very well on Sean Hannity's program.
At all. And in relation to any scandals that may come out, he's been pretty well turned over for all of those while he's been governor. So one of the advantages of being a governor for an extended period of time is a lot of the scandal stuff all gets dealt with. Final word to you, Michael. I mean, Michael, where are we? Where are we headed?
The type of like local digging is not like on a national campaign. There's so much more resources in the digging. I'd just be confident about, oh, you're not going to get more scandals from. I don't know about that, buddy.
With this, do you think? Talk me through to election day. What do you actually think is going to happen?
Even if what you'd like to see happens, you know, Francesca, even if it's Newsom or somebody, you still have to contend with the fact that the Democrats would then be skipping over the first black woman vice president with the whitest guy who has ever walked the face of the earth. In the case of Gavin Newsom.
Hang on. There's actually a little twist in that, which Bill Maher got onto, which is if Newsom is the guy, he can't have Kamala as his vice president because they're both from California. So it would only apply if she actually wanted to run for president. But if he was to become the nominee, he wouldn't have to have Kamala Harris because he wouldn't be allowed to because they're both from California, which is an interesting part of this equation. So they could put him in. I mean, they would be overlooking her for the top job, but he wouldn't have to worry about getting rid of her from the vice presidency because he wouldn't be allowed to have her. So that's just it's an interesting little part of the subtext here.
Sure. You know, I still.
But they would still be skipping over Kamala Harris for the top job, which would be seen as a snub to the constituents that Kamala Harris communicates with.
I think the look is pretty bad, though. If she wants the top job, she ran for it the first time, and you know. She also launched her campaign back in 2020, we now forget, on Joe Biden's alleged racism and on the issue of busing. So she's, you know, there's no love lost here between Biden and Kamala. I don't think he wants to pass it to her. She
didn't launch her campaign off of busing. She made a critique of Joe Biden on the issue of busing during the debate.
I think Biden cares all that much for anyone else in the Democratic Party, and I think he's wanted to be president since he was in the womb. So if you know, in terms of how do we get to November, the only way that Joe Biden leaves the ticket is if he chooses to, or if one of his caretakers choose to. And so to Destiny's point, I actually kind of understand why you would say, I'll vote for an urn over Donald Trump, because what you're saying is the president doesn't really matter. It's run by a committee and the administrative state, and it'll just keep kind of chugging along, and that'll be fine. The problem, though, with that argument for voters is that everything has gone to hell in a handbasket since Biden got elected. So, you know, you were mentioning earlier, Ukraine or Israel or this or that. All I can remember, and Trump made a good point of this during the debate, is for the last 20 years, the only president on whose watch Vladimir Putin hasn't invaded more land is Trump. He did it under Bush. He did it under Obama. He's done it under Biden. He didn't do it under Trump. During Trump, we had peace in the Middle East, believe it or not. We
did not have peace in the Middle East. We still had the war in Yemen. The Syrian civil war continued to rage on. Operation Inherent Resolve continued. I mean, Trump finished Operation Inherent Resolve, inherited Obama's operation. There still was the war in Afghanistan was still raging on. Like, what the fuck you mean peace in the Middle East? Peace in the Middle East with my ass.
Abraham Accord.
And as for Ukraine, like, the land was still occupied. The conflict was still frozen off and on.
Occurred.
He didn't deal with it, and he didn't prepare the country.
Evans 88 gave
Or
Hannah
Ukraine.
_ a tier 1 subscription. You are looking particularly luxurious in that setting, Dylan.
Thank you. I appreciate the tier 1, 2 sevens. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And on the website as well. Ooh la la.
In Israel and Saudi Arabia becoming buddies. There's a town in Israel named after Donald Trump. I wouldn't have guessed it either, but it happened. Now, of course, we have this major outbreak of war. You don't need to take my
Trump's backstabbing of the Kurds caused an expansion of the Syrian civil war. Like, he's in the Middle East.
Word for it. Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, said that the reason that the Russians invaded is because of American weakness, specifically Biden's, and the fact that Biden actually invited them and said if it was a minor incursion, he wouldn't do anything. So you might dispute all these.
Wait. It wasn't just specifically Biden's. It was American weakness, period, back in 2014 forward. He was talking about American weakness in holding up its whatever. Michael Knowles is trying to just turn it into everything is Biden's fault. That's the whole point here. When whoever is the current president, if you're trying to remove him, every current issue is his fault, even if he inherited it from previous presidents and their failures.
Things and say I'm missing the point or something, but the voters clearly agree with me on this. This is why Biden's so low in the polls and why the majority of them don't think he should run again.
Trump is also very low in the polls. They don't believe that he made peace in the Middle East. And the one thing that Trump lost on when it came to polling in that debate is the truth. Trump polled worse than Joe Biden on the truth. More Americans thought Joe Biden was telling the truth during the debate than Donald Trump.
Okay, I'm actually going to give the final word to you, Destiny, because you were reeling in horror through some of that from Michael. I'm not quite sure why, because it made a lot of sense to me, but go on.
I might reel in horror from what Destiny says, and then we'll just never end this panel.
Well, we're going to end it definitely with Destiny. You've got a minute to summarize your horror here.
If U.S. politics is anything today, it is everybody endlessly recoiling in horror, so it would be an appropriate end. I mean... There was somebody that destroyed Donald Trump in debates. I watched it happen over and over and over again. It was Hillary Clinton. It wasn't even close. Donald Trump knows nothing about domestic or foreign policy compared to her. And guess what? None of those debates mattered whatsoever. Just on the final point, it's easy to think that something is good because you look at only the surface level of things. You go, oh, well, there were no new wars, so it must have been great. People say peace in the Middle East and forget that Iran attacked Saudi Arabia proper for the first time in all of history. Donald Trump did nothing. The entire Great March of Return, the border riots, raged on. Yeah, that's great. That's not peace of the Middle East. The entire border riots raged on 2018, 2019 in Palestine and
he brought
Israel.
peace to the Middle East, and he's like, how did he do that? Well, he was killing this guy, and that guy died after we got struck, and then they bombed us, and we bombed the back. That doesn't sound like peace to me.
Donald Trump did absolutely nothing. The idea that there was peace in the Middle East here when the region was about to boil over, and it finally did on October 7th, is just laughable. It shows like a total misunderstanding of anything that's happened in the Middle East. What was the peace? Is it the ongoing civil war in Yemen? Was it the ongoing civil war in Syria? Was it the ongoing destabilization in Iraq? Was it the ongoing protests in the Gaza Strip? Like, it's a joke to me. But
on that point of full agreement between all three of you, I'm going to leave it. But thank you to all of you. It's been a great panel. Thank you very much. Your head shake is noted, Francesca. Thank you.
Strong ending from Destiny there. Really strong ending. Okay, bye-bye. Love you all. Goodbye, good luck, and good night.